Look, I'm just a geologist. I like rocks. I love rocks.
All right, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the Geology Flannelcast. My name is Steve.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Chris.
Howdy. I'm Jesse.
Lovely.
You like what I am trying a new me.
I like it. I like the howdy.
Yeah.
Howdy doody.
I have no comment. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't,
Yeah.
Turns if you want to know what I'm like in real life, this is it. I don't put on airs here.
Nice.
Pretty awkward meeting me.
So, for those of you who are just listening, we do record this in video too, and I was going to get a haircut tomorrow. Can't now, so I'm just going to let it fly.
Yeah.
Have some sort of scale bar and measure my hair growth over the next few podcasts and see how far it gets.
I'm digging this. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, don't change a thing.
Yeah, well, it keeps getting grayer, that's for sure. So, anywho, so we got a lovely jam-packed flannelcast for you this evening, I think.
We'll see. I'll let you know at the end of the episode how jam-packed it was.
Exactly. Chris edits it down to 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It's just the intro and goodbye.
Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for tuning in this week for the Geology Flannelcast, the premier geology podcast, as we like to say.
Yep. We like to say it. We don't know if it's true anymore, but
Doesn't matter.
that's true. I don't know. Our Patreons seem to think we're the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, if you will.
All right, you guys let's jump into this. Let's just go. Go, baby. Who wants the first story?
Well, first of all, I'd like to mention we have merch.
Oh, you want to
We
go?
now have merchandise on our website. Currently, we are selling stickers, which I don't have one right here in front of me, embarrassingly.
I got about 900 of them if you want
to. And then we are also selling coffee mugs currently. So,
Yeah, we basically are doing this just because it's fun.
Yeah,
we're not making a profit off these things.
We are not what you call efficient entrepreneurs.
We should post our text chain of like trying to figure out how to ship these at the cheapest possible.
That's true. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, send us a comment how to ship cheaply, because that seems to be the biggest hurdle right there is the shipping. But honestly, we all just wanted 50 coffee mugs, and we figured this was a way for us to do it. And if we don't sell any, we end up with 50 coffee mugs.
Yeah.
So
if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see I have the brand new Geology Flannelcast coffee mug here with the new little logo we have there at the coat of arms logo. So
nice. And if you're not watching us on YouTube, you should be.
Or the classic Geology Flannelcast sticker. We got these for sale too. So if you'd like to help support the podcast, you can check out the merch section on geologyflannelcast.com. So everything's listed there, and we'll get it out to you.
Yeah, and then we're going to expand. Pretty soon you're going to be able to get a Geology Flannelcast bike.
What we should do?
If you remember those bikes hanging in the background of Chris's old apartment, we're going to sell those.
I'm going to put a Geology Flannelcast sticker on there, and yes, you can.
Bam! Geology Flannelcast bike.
Yes. Yeah, so we got them, and a couple other things coming in the very near future. So, but yeah, so that's out there. Some fun little things.
I wanted to.
Yeah, no, I forgot to mention that, so it was very good.
Yeah, I feel like we mentioned it last week, but it was like the last minute, which Yeah. So, all right, who wants?
I don't imagine anyone turns us off.
Gosh, no.
The very last second. So.
Goodness, no.
I'm sure they heard it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Who doesn't listen to our outro?
Right?
It's the best part.
It is our best part. All right, who wants to go first, gentlemen?
I'll go. I've got 3.
Do it.
Back to back to back. Is that a chunk there?
I'll allow it.
Okay.
We got the Jesse triple threat here.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start oldest here. so there's this study out. It was in a French journal that I'm not even going to try, and no, I will try, because why not? Why not anger that whole segment of the world? La Anthropologie. That was pretty good.
Very good.
So
It's
So-
anthropology
basically,
with la in front of it.
yeah, it was L apostrophe. So basically, some researchers were looking at. So there's a famous site in Spain, in northern Spain, called. Here we go. Really just Cima de los Huos. I can't speak Spanish. I apologize.
That's good.
But it translates to something awesome. The Pit of Bones.
I like it.
Jeez.
It sounds like an Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which little quick sidebar? There's going to be another one.
Yeah. I saw that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry,
Someone
carry
brought up
on.
a good point that I think he'll be like 72 when they film it.
Yeah.
And Sean Connery, when he filmed the third one, was 58.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Yeah. Sean Connery's only like 8 years older than Harrison Ford or something.
R.I.P.
God rest his soul.
So anyway, the Pit of Bones, again, great name, it's in northern Spain. Yeah, north of Madrid, 150 miles north of Madrid, I guess. Just quickly looking at a map in case you're up on your Spanish geography. So this site is pretty interesting because it's got all these early sort of hominid bones in it. I don't know exactly what hominid bones related to humans, related to Neanderthals. We should have Alex on the show to the guest from
The summertime.
episodes ago.
Yeah.
But they've got like 7,500 fossils that they think belong to at least 29 of these ancient hominids. And so they looked at the bones, and they dated them to a little under 500,000 years, so like 400,000 years ago. And so by studying these bones, by studying sort of the osteology, I guess, of these bones, they've recognized that they all show like diseases that are associated with vitamin D deficiency.
Okay.
From lacking sunlight, essentially. So you see things like rickets, and there's a certain disease where you get bone deposits above your eye sockets.
Ouch.
Which sounds pretty rough. But their take on it is that these early humans, so this is during the glaciation, so during the Pleistocene, glacial, interglacial cycles. So this is during a glacial. So their take is during the really harsh part of winter, during this ice age, these early humans are basically spending all their time in this cave. And so they're in this really dark environment where they're not getting vitamin D. And to do that, they suggest that they went into some sort of hibernative or near hibernated, not near sort of hibernation.
What?
Yeah, that's so their whole reasoning is that like a lot of sort of early hominids have adaptations for cold. Like, picture sort of the artist's depiction of a Neanderthal, or look at a Neanderthal skull. They've got these anatomical adaptations to cope with the cold. That's what gives them their distinct facial features, the thick nasal cavity and whatnot. And so they're saying, why not? Why wouldn't, it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could adapt and go into this hibernative state.
Wow.
I don't
Some
know.
people aren't convinced.
Yeah. Okay.
Imagine. Others are skeptical, but they're also say that there's nothing wrong with the idea, sort of in principle.
I mean, I guess there have been human adaptations that have taken place in tens of thousands of years, like adaptation to higher altitudes or adaptation to lactose. People used to not be able to drink lactose, and now most people can. So I guess it's in the realm of possibility that a long glacial period, a species could adapt to some sort of extended stagnation period. I don't know.
And we in the modern, and this story sort of highlights this too at the end, we've been working on, we as humans have been working on sort of going into this sort of putting humans into this low temperature, low energy stasis if they're experiencing, say, a stroke or cardiac arrest, where you sort of lower their metabolism and their body temperature.
Oh, I thought you were going like Walt Disney or James Brown and like
Oh,
freeze them.
yeah. Who's the baseball player? Ted Williams.
Ted Williams, yeah.
Freeze him. No, you can get, there's cryogenic services. I think the one is out in Arizona. 300 grand to freeze your body and 75 grand to freeze your head.
There were a couple podcasts, I think like Radiolab or something like that talked about how, or I think it was This American Life did an episode about how one of the guys was like total quack. And like
there was the one main place.
It was a guy's basement, right?
Oh no, I was saying there's one where it's like a legit, it's like in an office park, but they lost power for like 3 days or something, and they never told anyone.
Yeah, I did hear that story. Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah.
You may have thawed out a little, but
yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of it is like, we'll let the future deal with getting you back alive, reanimating you.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, maybe they could just take a DNA sample and just clone the person, you know?
But at the same time, like, it's like a rich person's cemetery plot. Like, people buy cemetery plots, but there's no guarantee that cemetery is going to stay viable for more than 100 years.
Yeah.
You know, but at least a cemetery plot, you know, there's no pretext of, and you make it back to life, like like Lazarus or something.
So they're saying, with this hibernation thing, the humans were, I guess, like just hibernating during the winter months when it was just like bitterly cold out.
Well, their only sort of reasoning is that they just find these vitamin D deficiencies.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't read the actual article because it's in French. Yeah. Bonjour. That's where it starts and ends.
Oui.
But yeah, it's basically that's basically it. You're as far as I am in sort of understanding they just see these vitamin D deficiencies. But I mean,
hey, did you ever hear the story about the Vikings, how they overcame the vitamin D deficiencies? They ate lots of cod.
Oh, I was about to say Arctic populations, like sort of the Inuit people in Greenland, eat really high fat diets, and cod has that vitamin D with the high fat, I guess, content.
Yeah.
That'll do it. And that's one of the things they're saying is that maybe I don't know. I was a little confused here. I'm missing where, I mean, you find vitamin D deficiency in
sailors.
No, that's vitamin C. That's you get.
Well, sorry. Yes. Sorry, vitamin C. Yeah.
But you find it in, like, if you looked at late 19th century, early 20th century, like 1800s, 1900s, populations of northeastern Pennsylvania, you would find it from coal miners, like people spending all day in the coal
underground, developing
rickets. And they're actually seeing an uptick in it, and maybe this is anecdotal, in kids today, just sitting inside all day, developing sort of cases of rickets. You know, they're.
Do you think there's going to be a spike in rickets because of COVID?
Yeah, or even before COVID, just playing their Xbox and
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, also, some parents, you know, who do let their kids go outside, they don't go outside without like SPF 100 and their sun shirts and their long pants and their sunglasses and their
yeah, it's interesting.
hats.
Does sunblock, does that prevent you? It blocks UV, but does it stop you from getting the sweet vitamin D?
I don't know.
I have no idea. I can't comment on that.
Yeah.
Well, how
We'll
about
get
that?
back.
So, yeah, well so that's really interesting. So these guys are thinking that there might have been some kind of hibernation, or I guess hypothesis. We should say they're hypothesizing
Hypothesize.
some sort of hibernation technique.
Yeah.
That's a new one.
So I'll segue now.
All right.
So that's European. So that was like 450,000 years ago. Now let's think about North America. When were the first people in North America? Do y'all know off the top of your head?
I was going to say 17,000 years ago.
I think like 10,000 years is what they originally thought.
Yeah, you both nailed it. You passed.
All right.
That's all it was just a quiz. It was a one question. So we have the
Are you suggesting that maybe they're pushing it back a little bit?
Well, one, they are definitively, and two, there's another group that wants to push it back even further.
Oh, so they are pushing it back more than 100,000. I'm sorry, 10,000. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
they're pushing it back more than 10,000 now.
more
right?
than 10,000. Yeah, so the sort of consensus is like 11.5, right at sort of the end of the Younger Dryas.
Okay.
And so you get people coming across the land bridge from Siberia to Alaska, and the land bridge was known as
Bering Strait.
well, it's the Bering Strait today. It was known as Beringia. Is the name of the actual land surface. And so the land surface was exposed because sea levels were down, because there was all of the ice on land. And in the intervening time, you know, to the present, all of that ice is melted and now it's underwater. But anyhow, so these people crossed over this land bridge. And so this is when you start getting into sort of controversy, is, you know, where exactly did they go and how long did it take? And so consensus, like y'all were saying, like 11,000 years ago, was this culture known as the Clovis culture, because it was a type of, there's a specific type of tool or spear tip or projectile point that they made that was really found out of Clovis, New Mexico. That's where the name Clovis people. And you find Clovis projectiles sort of all over. You find even in Pennsylvania, the Meadowcroft. Do you know about Meadowcroft? There's
No.
where you find evidence of it. And Meadowcroft is, I want to say like 17. It's like 15 to 17. But dating gets a little sort of sketchy when you're looking at sort of stone tools in a stone rock shelter.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, you can get tricky to date that stuff.
So, but you find sort of sketchy evidence all the way down into South America pretty quickly after the end of the max of the last ice age. But they've found a couple sites, and so this one, there's a site that's they found in South America, in Mexico. They find some sites in Brazil, but the dating is, not entirely sure. But there's a site in Mexico that's a cave that's at least 35,000 years ago.
Wow.
And they find
Holy cow.
all of these stone tools, and they've dated it because they've got hearths where they were burning stuff, and so they can carbon date.
Ooh.
And they've also got they can date. There's bones in there from both human and animals that they can date. Oh no, sorry, animals that have tool marks on them. So they're dating the bones and the tools, and so they've got OSL as well, what we talked about last week, where you're optically stimulated luminescence. So they got two ways to measure the dates on things: radiocarbon and OSL, and it's all giving these dates of like 30,000 years ago.
Wow.
And
How
so
about that?
they're sort of saying, all right, you know, it looks like people were here before that. It's interesting because you find that I started digging into it a bit, and you have all these sort of sketchy sites. There's one in Brazil that maybe 45,000 years old.
Okay.
But it's just like this little carbon layer, and it's like
charcoal. Okay, yeah.
So they're like,
no, they you can use thermoluminescence for some of that, or I guess for the pottery you can use the thermoluminescence.
Yeah. So people are saying, well, this is a hearth. This is where they have a fire, but you could also say maybe it was just a wildfire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of it, but this looks pretty unequivocal that it was, these are tools and it's inside the cave, and it's all
35,000 years. Where does that put you in the glacier interglacial?
It's in you're in the glacial. You're not in the max. It's getting colder.
Yeah.
So they may have.
Yeah, that's Wisconsin.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting because it shows how far people had spread all the way down into Central and then into South America.
Wow. Yeah.
But even if you think about Meadowcroft in Pennsylvania, you're making it all the way across the U.S.
Yeah, that's incredible. But they do think these were all descendants of Siberia,
Mm-hmm.
or Asia, as a whole.
Yeah.
Okay. So none of these are sailing across from the.
No. This all looks like they walked. So so that's that. This looks pretty good.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Pretty good. Now we get into where we speculate and we get armed.
All right, I think this might be the story that I came across as well. Yeah.
Am I taking the pro or the con?
Hear us out. Yeah.
All right.
So this one comes from. So there's a famous sort of death assemblage of mastodon bones in the outside of San Diego. It's called the Cerruti Mastodon Site. I assume it's after friend of the podcast.
Yeah, he must have discovered it. Yeah.
By
the way, he just got married. Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope you're listening, buddy. Yeah, Catherine, Cerruti, congrats.
Bummed we couldn't be there.
Yeah, exactly. Poor guy pushed his wedding back twice. And finally was like, forget it.
It was initially scheduled for May.
Yeah, and then it was July or something. I forget.
August or something.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so this site, you find all these bones, and so there's a group of researchers working on these bones, and they're 130,000 years old.
Okay.
And with the bones, you find bones and stones. Classic.
Yep. That was my metal band name in high school.
Bones and stones.
Yeah. So the researchers working on this have said that these bones are ancient tools. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen like early hominid or early modern human tools, they're basically just rocks. And now these anthropologists and whatnot know what they're doing, and they can tell when something is a hand axe or whatever. But I'm looking at these rocks, and they look like rocks, and I know rocks.
That's a good point. You do know rocks.
Yeah. But they're claiming these are. So that was sort of initially they're like, these are early human tools, and they were using them to either butcher these mastodons or break apart these dead mastodons.
Do they got
They
pictures
died.
of these rocks on the website?
Yeah, here I'll send you the.
Yeah, send this one over. I want to take a look at this and see.
It's just sort of in the header.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dig up the actual paper, but
All right.
look at the stone anvil.
Stone Anvil.
It's a rock. So
Yeah.
So basically, they're saying that the bones were placed on top of the rock, and they used another rock to break them open to get, say, the marrow out or whatnot. The thing is, and then so there was a lot of speculation, and there were a lot of other researchers who were like, well, I mean, no, there's a number of factors that can give you just these rocks and could give you broken bones. And the big one is that this site was found because of construction. And so you had construction equipment that actually rolled over a lot of this material.
Oh, jeez. So
broke
like
it
the
all
breaking the bones and stuff like that. Yeah.
And now they've come out with a new paper to rebut this, and they're saying, actually, we're finding residue of bone on the rock itself to say it was hit.
But I mean, couldn't you just say that if I don't know of the circumstances, obviously, that the construction equipment was running over these all this stuff, but if you had the construction equipment running over and then the bone was scraping on the rock, like can they?
Yes. So yes, basically, you're correct.
Yeah, it sounds like there's
the main thing is that
there's still a lot of variables going on. There's a lot of extra bioturbation going on.
Because there's a big missing ingredient here, and it's collagen.
Okay.
Collagen you have in your bones, and so if the main argument against this is that if the stones
and bones,
you would expect collagen to also preserve on the stones. You would see traces of collagen.
Well, I mean, the collagen breaks down pretty fast.
Well, yes.
And that's what I've had problems, like some of the stuff that you and I have been looking at.
Yes.
Where the stuff's like, 10,000-ish years old plus, and the collagen's breaking down.
So it breaks down out of the bones really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But they're saying you should still trace it on the rock from breaking the bone. And so
you should still.
So
okay,
the rebuttal article is just as weak as the initial article. Is that what you're saying?
So yeah. So they're basically saying, it's very possible collagen had already disintegrated because the bones were just deposited and the stones were there, and then they got smashed into the bones from the construction work.
Yeah.
So the collagen had already broken down, and that's why you don't find any of it on the bones. So the collagen has all disappeared. You find none of it on the bones. And they're saying, well, you would still be able to find some trace of it on the bone if it's smashing, or into the stone if you're smashing it into these bones.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like they're going to end it to say agree to disagree.
Yeah, I'm not a big skeptic. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but boy, this seems.
I guess my question is, does that stone anvil fit Sasquatch's hand? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's the only explanation, really.
See how many podcasts in a row we can talk about Sasquatch. Trying to get those listeners up.
You're also talking about. I'm not 100% sure you're talking 100,000 years ago. Like modern humans evolve, if you want to be generous, 200,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about them not only sort of migrating just out of Africa, coming all the way across Asia, coming across Beringia at, the last major interglacial was 125,000 years ago, where you have higher sea levels because you have more ice that's melted. So you're telling me they walked all that way?
I mean, Forrest Gump ran from Alabama out to Arizona, so.
That's a good point. Have you this is sort of we're getting shockingly getting sidetracked here. Have you seen, there's a guy, Paul Salopek, and he's doing this, it's called Out of Africa. And he started, I want to say like 7 years. I've been following him for like 7 or 8 years. He's doing this, he's walking the route that humans have taken in their evolution out of Africa, went through the Middle East, went down through, did he go through? I think he went through India, and now he's up into China. No, he's in, I don't think he got to China yet. I think he's.
Wow. So.
Yeah. He's doing the walk.
Who's funding this?
He crowdfunds a bunch of it, but Nat Geo is doing.
Wow.
So he writes.
So this has been 8 years.
8 years, yeah. So it's really interesting.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, he's making the Appalachian Trail look like a warm up.
Yeah, but I mean, if he's walking it, it's not like he's
he's going to have
super fast hiking it, but.
Yeah, but he's going to have a hard time once he gets up into like Mongolia, I guess north of there. That's not going to be fun.
He might be into I forget where he's at now, but he writes all these and he has local guides that walk with him, and it's really.
What's his name? Paul what?
Salopek. Here.
Okay.
If you just do, I think it's like Out of Africa.
Yeah, he's all over the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Out of Eden.
Out in Eden. Yeah. Sorry.
Send him an email. See if he wants to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
Can you take a little time out of your busy day, please? Wow, this is a heck of a jerk.
He's got time.
He's
in the world.
He's skipping. Okay, so he goes up into like he's not doing the land bridge. He's skipping a portion of it, but then he's starting back
Chris,
up.
There is no land bridge right now.
No, I know that. Thank you. They're going to lower sea level just for this guy.
Hey, listen, things are about to get awkward. I just wanted to rescue you.
Wow. Let's see if I can find out where he's at. But that's a heck of a walk. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But that's only 8 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about 8 like that. That's well within one generation of just people following food.
It looks like he's in
following food,
east of India right now.
Following food or running from enemies or.
But you think about like when we had Alex on the show, whatever show number that was, where he talked about, I think he was near Denisova, the cave in Russia, or near Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And that was early humans, but that was only 50,000 years ago.
Right. So now you're talking in America already, and 50,000 years before that. I don't know. I mean,
I feel like a lot of this early stuff is.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong though. Some of the tools that are like definitively tools, to me still look like rocks. So
I mean,
me calling that a rock is just like, I'm a geologist.
If you look at Clovis points or whatever, they're projectiles that people have shaped into.
Yeah, and you could see that, and I know what an arrowhead it looks like, and all that jazz, but sometimes you see these hand axes, like basically a sharpish rock you hold in your hand. I don't know, looks like a rock, but it looks like, where did we talk about a game in Philly where people used to just throw rocks at each other? I feel like we talked about this once.
That might be. I know Philadelphians aren't like, they're in a different world, but I think that's a little bit below Philadelphia. Come on, let's.
I've definitely had this conversation before. I thought it was on the podcast, maybe not, but yeah, you never used to just throw rocks at each other. Like I remember thinking, like, maybe that kind of sounds familiar, but maybe I've had injuries from it. I don't know. So
yeah. Anyhow, that's my human stories. All connected.
Yes, Maddie. Philly sports fans are the best. Listen, all right. Just for those of you who are only listening, Chris just typed a comment about throwing snowballs at Santa Claus. I take great issue with this. First of all, it was like 40 years ago. Second of all, Santa Claus was
like 50 years ago.
He was on the field and he was visibly intoxicated.
Yeah.
And the fans were upset with the fact that they would let a drunk Santa on the field.
They're also losing too. The Eagles are losing that game, and
so they were throwing snowballs at Santa because they were disappointed with the product that was being put. Like, hey, that's not a well representation of Santa. So this has nothing to do with just we're so bad we throw snowballs at Santa.
The fan, and Maddie just said the fans were drunk too. The fans are expected to be drunk.
Yes, Santa, exactly. Santa is held to a higher standard.
I don't want to say he deserved it, but he probably deserved it.
Yes. I'm going to tell you right now, I've been to well over 100 Eagles games. I've, probably been to the same amount of Phillies games, Sixers games, maybe, I don't know, probably half of that at Flyers games.
Super fan over here.
Yeah, man. So I feel like I have a somewhat of an authority to speak on this. So it just gets me mad when people bring up Santa Claus. But and Maddie just pointed out the fact that we grease our poles whenever we win something. Yes, once every 50 years, we have to grease up the poles so people don't climb on top of them because safety first.
So that's where we are. We've gone from crossing land bridges.
Sorry, yes. Good digression.
We've evolved that we grease poles so we don't climb them in celebration.
Exactly.
Real fast to go back to just very briefly to go back to the question we had about what happens if you wear sunscreen? Do you not get the vitamin D? And our friend Frank on Patreon said that vitamin D, to take for your body to make vitamin D, you need that ultraviolet light. So sounds like the sunscreen hinders your vitamin D production.
Now, let me ask you all something. If you were hibernating in a cave, you're an early human, and you want to put
allegedly hibernating. I'm not buying this 100% that these humans were hibernating, but continue.
And you want to put up a do not disturb sign, and you're typing it up, and your margins aren't correct. How would you go about formatting that? Who would you ask these questions?
That is a great question. I think that's Word 2. I think that's Word version 2. So that is a great point. Good segue, Jesse. We were just about to get to our great sponsor, the Formatting Formula. So thank you for that. Sorry, we got too engrossed in Philly sports. That'll do it to me every time. But yeah, Word 2, right? Is that?
I was word ugh or something.
Word ugh. Word Neanderthal. But I wouldn't be surprised if the formatting formula could figure that out and translate it from wing ding into time.
Yeah, how does the formatting formula work with the cave writing petroglyphs?
Yeah, I'm sure. Listen, I've given them some old stinking PDFs before and been like, I need this in Word. And they're like, okay, like, hang on. Like, cause I do it and it comes back like hieroglyphics. I give it to them and they give it back to me like this awesome Word document. So, yeah, for all of your Word formatting needs, please check out www.formattingformula.com or YouTube/C/formatting formula for all of your Word documenting needs. They can, yeah, I'm pretty sure they could probably translate cave paintings into, Calibri or Times New Roman or
Add a table of contents to the
exactly
petroglyphs.
They probably could. It came up at work today. Like, do you think someone can actually read wingdings? And I'm betting there is somebody out there who can read it.
There's a whole story about why that font came about, and I should just shut up until I remember the story.
Yeah.
So.
But if you ever gone into the, usually you go to font and you click the top 3 because there's like Calibri and Times New Roman and I don't know, maybe something Garamond or something. But there's like hundreds and hundreds of them. And the formatting formula could figure out like, hey, that double space in this sentence isn't Times New Roman. It's actually a different font because the double space is too small. Like, they can figure out stuff like that. Like, they're just crazy. So please check them out. And more than that, tell them Geology Flannelcast sent you. We've actually had a few comments back from the formatting formula saying, hey, we got some people coming from the podcast. Thank you. So keep them coming, people. Appreciate it. Send them comments. Check them out on YouTube. Give them, subscribe to them on YouTube. They'd really appreciate that. Just like you could subscribe to us on YouTube. We'd really appreciate that too. But we're here to push the formatting formula, not us. So check it out. Yeah. All right. So back to the lecture at hand, as Snoop Dogg would say.
You want to go with your story, Steve?
We can.
I guess Jesse's done with the triple threat, right?
Yeah,
right.
I'm winded.
Listen, that was a lot to take in. It really was. So I was just going to talk about the moon, but I'm going to keep it non-planetary stuff because I know that upsets Chris.
Doesn't upset me. We were just doing too much of. I felt like we needed to, round it out a bit. Keep it.
I'm not going to lie. There was a lot of the news that was just planetary stuff for a good chunk of the time there. But so no, this is terrestrial in nature, and this is about methane deposits. We talked about methane deposits before and calathrates and things like this, but there was this group of scientists that was studying the Arctic oceans and how they leak methane gas. Like, okay, there's a little bit known about this, that methane can leak. And, there's obviously a lot more greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, and a lot of that is contributed to humans, but there is increase in methane in the atmosphere that is non-anthropogenic in nature. Basically, it's coming from, the earth itself. And what this study did that was different than other studies is they actually put these piezometers in the ground. So a piezometer, I deal with these a lot at work in environmental consulting and things like that. So you drill a hole in the ground, you have water in the groundwater, you put these piezometers in, and it's basically just a device that measures pressure change. They can do a few other things if you want them to, temperature and things like that, but they essentially measure the difference in the change of the water pressure on this device itself. And that slight difference in pressure can tell you lots of different things. It could tell you if the groundwater table is moving up and down or what's happening. So what these researchers did is they put these piezometers in the subsurface of the ocean, in the shallowish ocean, and they noticed that based on the lunar cycle Low
It was the deep ocean.
meters is what I was reading. Am I wrong? I could be wrong.
I thought at the very end they say that they wanted to continue the study in shallower water.
Okay. But just the slight change from essentially the tides from the moon, the difference in, you know, those couple of feet from low tide to high tide. Low tide has less pressure on the subsurface sediment, and just that little bit of change of pressure can actually release a lot more methane. Now, normally when they measure methane, they measure bubbles and, like, you know, they measure these huge releases, but without these very sensitive piezometers to notice the difference, they would have noticed this essentially methane release. So it's more widespread than they could see using traditional sonar or things like that. So it's just a really interesting, different look at how to measure how methane is getting into the surface. So,
Well, the one interesting thing they were talking about was, so during low tide, you basically, it's just so there's a little bit of less hydrostatic pressure pushing down on the sea floor, and they started to notice the methane coming out. But they were the question that they're, like, the thought experiment they were talking about this article was, with continued sea level rise, if we add more water into the ocean, that could potentially kind of balance this out a bit too and kind of keep that methane in check. So they're interested to see what's going to happen with continued sea level rise as we keep on adding more water into the ocean, how that's going to affect the methane. So they can actually see the methane kind of, from my understanding of the article, it seemed like they saw the methane coming out of the sediments, but it was still staying in the water column because the study was in deeper waters, and they were saying, well, we want to continue this study into more of the shallower waters, because in the shallower waters, that's where the methane has more of a chance to actually come out and go into the atmosphere. So it seems like I said, from my understanding of the article, that all the methane that they were looking at is still staying in the water column. It's not going out. It's not leaving the water, and it's not going out into the atmosphere.
now my question to this was, are they taking into account that warmer oceans mean less dense water, which means that the water is essentially lighter? That would lead to more methane being released. That's what I was worrying about. And I understand the tidal influence is going to be much greater than the density in, you know, it'd have to be like 100 degrees warmer in order to match the same amount from the tidal influence. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like they're leaving a little bit out of that equation as to, oh, you're going to have more water, so it's going to be deeper, so you're going to release less methane, and, you know, this is the way of the planet kind of equalizing things, like, you know, leveling out the seesaw.
What do you think would have more an effect, though? Would it be the actual volume of water with the increased hydrostatic pressure, or do you think how much how much would that density affect it? Because I think the hydrostatic pressure, I mean, without doing any calculations,
the hydrostatic pressure would definitely have a larger influence on it. And also a warmer ocean, you know, the warmer ocean is less dense, so it takes up more room, which then adds more volume, which then adds more hydrostatic pressure.
Yeah, it expands.
Yeah.
You know, 1/3 of sea level rise is from warming.
Right. But then, so if it expands, you take something that's this heavy and this big, and you take something that's the same heaviness, it's just bigger.
Yeah. How does this affect the chemistry? Are you getting these pockets of, like, anoxia, or does it make it more acidic in these places?
what we read didn't mention anything about.
No, this was basically just it was the first time they were actually, because they use piezometers, which are, you know, fairly sensitive, and they're essentially continuous readings over, you know, I say long period of time, but you know, you can use them for weeks to months to even years. This is the first time this has been done to measure these subtle changes in the sea floor. So it was just a neat study that was done in the sediment in the sea floor.
Yeah,
So,
the quote at the end is very true, where she ended it by saying fascinating.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know. I just read this and I thought like, that's pretty neat. Somebody taking a different a very, piezometers have been used for decades, but just applying them in a different environment and using them to essentially measure this phenomena that has a huge potential effect. I mean, methane is 20 times more potent a greenhouse gas than CO2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, methane has a much lower resonance time, meaning it stays in the atmosphere a lot less, but you're talking 20 years instead of 150 years or something like that. So methane is still a big deal. And I think I brought this up once before on the podcast. Does anyone remember Sequest? The show? Yeah. So there was this futuristic television show. It was like Star Trek, but under the water. And they had banned beef in the future because cows fart too much and were creating too much methane, which was creating too much greenhouse gas. So you couldn't get a burger anymore. So that was one of the episodes, they busted like an illegal cow farm. I forget what it was, but anyway, somehow
illegal cow farm.
somehow they ended up to get their hands on some beef. And it was a big deal because, methane can be a much more potent gas than CO2. So, but the problem with CO2 is once it's up there, it's kind of up there.
It's up there for thousands of years.
Once methane's up there, yes, it's 20 times more potent, but it's up there for, 20 years or something. And then it breaks down into more simpler complexes that are not as effective.
Well, one of the things it breaks down into is CO2.
Right. So
waka waka.
So it's win-win if you're in it for the heat.
Do you want to talk about that salt mine thing real fast?
We can. Yeah, I got things to add about it.
Oh yeah. Okay. So so it's actually kind of I'll bring the podcast down a little bit. It's kind of a sad story. Look, there's a salt mine in Louisiana, out on Avery Island, and there was a collapse inside the salt mine, and right now there's one miner that's dead and another one missing after this. I'm sorry, not after, another one's still missing. They haven't found him yet. So that's a very sad story, and that's no bueno. But that I just wanted to talk a little bit about that area in Louisiana with the salt deposits out there. So number one, this salt mine was in Avery Island. You guys know what else Avery Island is known for?
I do. Do you?
Yes, go ahead.
This is home of Tabasco.
Yes.
It is named. Well, it's named after the Avery family, but Edmund McElhaney, who started Tabasco, married an Avery, and that's how he ended up there with all this salt. He was kind of obsessed with peppers. Since
you could say that.
But yeah, and then he started brining them when he was there. But he's an interesting fella. He made a lot of money in the 1850s, and when he married, I think Mary or Eliza, something Avery. It was an Avery, and she was down from Louisiana, so it was a southern. He's from up north, well, somewhere, not Confederate, and he moved down there. And when the Civil War started, the family left Louisiana, left this island because of there was, I guess, naval blockades or whatever, went to Texas, and that's where he became obsessed with peppers because he started eating all this food. But he converted his entire fortune into Confederate dollars.
Oh, jeez.
So anyway, they were broke after the war, and they spent his remaining years on the island, but basically just cultivating peppers, and like he was kind of just go around cultivating peppers and like a gentleman farmer in his old age.
Oh boy.
Just a fun fact about.
So how did Tabasco start?
Because he would brine, there was all this salt on the island. There was the salt mines, so he just got into brining different peppers, and that's how you make Tabasco sauce. That's why it's different from. It's not as vinegary; it's very salty.
I like Tabasco.
I
don't use it enough. I use too much sriracha. I need to start
Yeah,
using more Tabasco.
I'm a Tabasco fella as well.
Are you guys, I want to talk about this other thing related to this, the salt mines in this area. So are you guys familiar with Lake Pignor?
Yes.
Like within a couple miles of Avery Island, right out there in the.
Yeah, that was another salt mine disaster, but that was not because of the salt mine. That was because of oil prospecting.
Yes, that was so this area that we're talking about, it's about a 2-hour drive west of New Orleans.
Huh.
And back in 1980, Texaco was looking for oil under Lake Pignor. I can't pronounce it.
Pignor. Yes.
And
real quick, like salt can act as basically a reservoir. You know, it can act as a cap for petroleum products, for gas, for oil,
trap.
So, you know, they call them salt traps. So having salt in the area was logical. So that's why Texaco was there, because they were like, oh, well, if there's salt, there might be oil underneath it. So
there was an engineer that was working on, that was figuring out where to drill, was doing the math, doing the trig on where to figure out. Because what you want to do is, when a lot of times oil, you get these salt domes. Salt, when it's underground, it flows. All right, it's less buoyant than the surrounding area, the surrounding rock, and it tends to form. We call it these domes or salt diapirs, right? And it's basically almost like a big column of salt. And like I said, it literally starts flowing up through the rock, very, very slowly. It acts like a plastic, right? But what happens with salt, it kind of, as it doesn't, it tends to be very it doesn't have any fractures or anything in it. And one of the things that happens is when you're getting oil forming, the oil migrates from your source rock into your reservoir rock. And so what happens is that migrating oil, like what Steve said, gets stuck on the sides of these salt diapirs, and that's what we call it's a trap for oil, and that's usually like the magic spot where to drill. So the people in the oil companies are always looking for these salt diapirs.
And they can be big. These type in Avery Island, it's 2.5 miles wide and 3 miles long. Like they're
wow.
Big. Yeah. And if you look at I'm trying to find the thickness of them too, but if you can look at pictures and you can see, like, you know, you drive big dump trucks into these mines.
Oh yeah, they're gigantic.
Yeah.
And they leave these big columns of salt in there to like act as supports. And I think we did talk about Lake Pignor in an early episode.
Yeah, I think we did too. It's a fascinating story. But anyway, so the engineer made a mistake, screwed up his math basically with the trig that he was doing, and they were drilling through the lake, and they drilled through into the salt mine. So now they pulled out the drill rig, and they knew something was wrong right away. Once they hit that salt, they're like, oh, like you could tell. The drillers knew. They pull out their equipment, and water starts flooding into the salt mine. So what do you think happens when water starts flooding into the salt mine?
Right.
It starts dissolving out the salt. So magically, they evacuated the whole mine. Magically, nobody was killed in this thing, but the whole mine was flooded out, and they actually drained the entire lake.
It drained so much that the Mississippi River started flowing backwards.
Yes, the Mississippi River was flowing from the Gulf of Mexico, draining into Lake Pignor, and there was a giant waterfall that it was something like the biggest waterfall in the United States outside of
Like
Niagara
Niagara
Falls
Falls or something. Yeah.
It's a huge. It was just crazy until everything had a basically until the salt mine filled up with water and everything got back into equilibrium.
But it was like a giant whirlpool pulling in like
Yes.
gigantic
Tank-
freighter ships
Yes,
and
yes.
yeah.
It was. I'll have to post the video on YouTube. Let me write a note about that. But
Yeah, there was there's a
or-
modern marvels about that.
Yes,
Like, that show on the History Channel. It's really, really interesting. So yeah, you have a chance after you watch our podcast on YouTube, you can check that out. But it just goes to show you how massive these mines are. The fact that it could drain a gigantic lake, continue to drain the lake to the point where now you're essentially sucking the Gulf of Mexico backwards up the Mississippi River into this lake.
yeah. It's oh man, wild stuff.
Yeah. And goes to show you, make sure you study your math. You know,
What do they always say in construction? Measure
measure twice, cut once.
cut once. Yeah.
And if you think back to your trig teacher, and you may have thought to yourself, what would I ever need this for?
Yeah.
Well, this is it.
This is it for when somebody drills into a lake accidentally and you have to. Yeah. Lake Pinior is one of those crazy incidents. So very, very cool.
Yeah.
Jesse, did you want to go with another story?
What's that?
Did you want to go with another story?
No, I'm good for now. I think I've got a thing about salt, but I'll talk about that maybe on the bonus Patreon.
Have you read that book, Salt?
Yeah, it's great. Mark Kurlansky.
Yeah, it was a good book.
He also wrote one about cod. That is also good.
Oh, I haven't read that.
Yeah, full circle on the podcast.
I have seen Welcome Back, Cotter, but so, yeah, very, very cool. Well, I'd like to re-push our merch, as the kids are calling it these days, merch on our website. Make sure you check it out. Mugs and stickers, and maybe possibly something soon to be coming.
Very soon.
Very soon.
Very soon.
I like it.
So anyways, all that stuff you can check out on geologyflannelcast.com. The other thing you can check out on geologyflannelcast.com, if you want to get a hold of us, stop by, say hi. You can hit us up, shoot us an email, shoot us a message on geologyflannelcast.com. Also, every once in a while, we do an episode about listener questions. We have a bunch of listeners send us questions, and we answer them on air. It's always a blast to do these questions, to answer these questions, and you guys send in some awesome questions. I'm always like amazed at the caliber of questions that are coming in from this stuff. So really cool. So send those in. Everyone's, like I said, we'll probably do one in a little bit on the listener question episode.
And we do love those listener question episodes, but a faster way to get your listener question answered is to become a Patreon member. When you become a Patreon member, we have different tiers, and one of the tiers is you get to ask us a question like toot sweet, and we will get to that question slightly quicker. We try to get them as best we can, but our listener question episodes tend to be some of our funnest episodes, if you will.
More funner.
Thank you. More funner episodes. So, but at Patreon, check us out, hook us up, help us out. We're thinking about we were talking about Chris while Chris's headphones aren't on, and talking about maybe getting him some Bluetooth headphones so he can walk away from the mic without.
These are Bluetooth headphones.
Then why are they plugged in?
Because it only works if I hook it up to my phone. I can't plug it into the computer. Anyways, we'll talk about this off air, right?
See, all these things I guess we're going to have to upgrade Chris's computer to include Bluetooth. So, oh, good times. But yeah, check us out on Patreon, Facebook, and Instagram, and Twitter. Twitter is GeoFlannelcast.
Twitter's GeoFlannelcast, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, please check us out. Give us likes, share us, and it's tell a family member December, right?
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Tell
Yeah.
a family member December. And then when, like, you know, parents ask you, you know, when you're an adult now, like, what do you want for Christmas? I don't know. I don't really need anything. You should be like, you know what I want? I want a Geology Flannelcast coffee mug. That's what I want. And then send them to the website. And then, you know, your parents can be like, I have a question. I have this rock in my backyard. What is it? And then we'll try to answer it.
And then they can also see all the links that we talk about from the podcast, and they can learn a lot more.
Yeah, exactly.
See all the things you can do on the geologyflannelcast.com?
And one of the links on our geologyflannelcast.com is the formatting formula. We'd like to thank them again for being our sponsor. We always appreciate them for all your Word documenting formatting needs. So check them out too. I guess until next time, I don't know. I'm Steve.
Sure. I'm Chris.
Yeah, I'm Jesse.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We love you guys. And, quick note, we will not be doing a podcast next week because of the holidays.
For shame.
Sorry, I forgot to mention. So look at all these people. If you stop listening early, if you press the stop button when we started doing the wrap them up stuff, they're going to miss us. All this, they're going to miss all this stuff. So,
but our Patreons, you can, you know, if you do sign up for Patreon, Jesse and I are going to have a staring contest for 2 hours on Monday.
Yeah.
So if you want to check that out, we'll see who blinks first. You know, Jesse's an odds-on favorite because he wears the glasses, but you know, we'll see. I've been vising it up all week. So,
and I will be refereeing.
Yeah, exactly. So check us out. We can't wait. All right. Thanks everybody. Happy holidays. All that jazz. And we'll see you shortly before the new year, I guess.
Yeah. We'll have one more for this year. Yeah.
Yeah. One more for 2020, buddy. We got to get it in.
Yeah. So, all right. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. So thanks again, everyone. We love you guys, and see you. Stay safe out there. Bye.
Bye.